If you think about it, in your 20s, your career's just getting started. But when careers really take off, tends to be in your 30s, late 30s, and that often coincides with women having children. Now, the problem there is that when you decide to have children, you often take your eye off the ball of even thinking about your career. Paying attention to both being a mother of very young children and acceleration in your career is really challenging. And often women step back for a while, which would be absolutely fine if they were then able to step back up again when their kids are a little bit older and their career is ready to take off again. But that just doesn't happen today. It's very difficult once you've stepped off a ladder to get back on it. The first thing we would always advise people to do is play the long game. And we use the analogy of a game of chess. So this is the middle game of chess where things are quite messy and you might have to sacrifice some pieces. Now, that's fine. But you need to think, if you're going to make those sacrifices, what moves can you put in place to make sure that in the long term you are set up to win? So for example, if you maybe have said no to a promotion or are working part-time, you can still maintain your network and still let people know that in the long term you're ambitious and you do want to rekindle your career at a later point. We often come across women who are thinking about going back after maternity and they compare their salary to the cost of childcare. What you also need to think about is the long term for your career. So if, for example, childcare costs are expensive, then they often are, and they outweigh what you're bringing in the first year of your child's life, that makes it look like it's economically not viable. The problem is, if you take 3 or 4 years out and take a long career break, by the time you're ready to go back and your childcare costs have gone down because the kids are at school, what you'll find is that your market value could potentially have dropped even further. And therefore, if you can keep your hand in and stay in the market in some way, shape or form, you're much more likely to be able to ramp your earnings up again when you do go back and you're on full throttle again. I think there's a number of really practical things you can do in those first 90 days. And one of them, and companies can help support this, is find someone who's a mentor, a buddy who's been through the same thing, probably in the same organisation, not too far ahead. So having somebody who's been there, felt the guilt that you're feeling, had the sleepless nights, can talk to you about what that's like at the same time as holding this job down, that's immensely useful. I think have a backup plan as well. Something's going to go wrong. The child's going to be ill, childcare's going to fall through. So think about how you're going to handle that and have something agreed with your line manager. And the other thing I would suggest is be really clear with the team around you about your working arrangements and the flexibility you need if indeed that is something you've negotiated. And that's easy to do these days. You know, you can have your calendar accessible to the whole team so that they can see your working days and not working days. Agree some boundaries around when you can be contacted and when you can't. And if you get those agreed and set in stone in advance, everybody's more likely to be happy.